All right, greetings everyone. Welcome to this week's session of Lunar Alchemy. I'm John here with Bella. So nice to welcome you here. This week, we're going to be looking at the transit through gate 26 and the shadow of pride. We did, since our last Lunar Alchemy session, have a transit through gate 5 and the shadow of impatience. And every time that happens, it feels, Bella, like an entire eon has passed since our last Lunar Alchemy session. Not exactly sure if that just has to do with the process of being so deeply connected to these movements of the sun reflecting through the moon, or why, but I'm excited to get back into into the cycle of looking at these transits through lunar alchemy. So one of the key words that occurs through this particular gene key of the 26 is that of manipulation. So I'm excited to see how that plays into our experience of the shadow of pride, and for really everyone, how this particular transit impacts our experience of the entrepreneurial path and in the exchange that exists there. So very nice to see all of our members in our webinar, and to those of you on Facebook watching, welcome. We'll look forward to connecting with you there. Feel free to drop a comment about how the 26 falls into your genetic profile. So Bella, what's on your mind for the 26?
We're calling it a hypnotist in the 64 doors, and I was working on the description the other day. I don't have anything in my ego center. So here in the body graph, we have 4 different gates. We have the 26, the 51, the 21, and the 40. And that is you could say the heart muscle. And it's here to have willpower and determination and survive, you could say. And I really need to tap into that energy. Sometimes we say that when you have an open center, you have wisdom there because you have seen it so much. And I still feel like with those archetypes in especially the 26 and maybe even more than the 21, I feel like in society, we've seen it more in the shadow frequency. So I'm kind of like, how can you use manipulation for good? Because that's basically what the 26 says. And he says, because the 44 and the 26, they have to do with memory. They kind of store all the memory. So when the 26 speaks, he can make history whatever he wants it to be. And then, of course, people are going to buy into the message of what the next step is. And I think with where the world is right now, that there's a little bit of this, especially with the shadow frequency, like a little bit of resistance for me to kind of, to always trust the 26 in its trickster energy. And at the same time, I believe that I'm very attracted to it because so many people in my life have in their incarnation cross, they have the 26 and the 45. So there is something there that's very attractive and powerful as well. It's very tribal in how it shows itself. It's like it's actually in the higher frequency for the tribe. It is if I thrive, you thrive. That's the highest expression of the tribe, of the tribe, and it is about also if I die, all of you die. So there is a lot of responsibility, and that's why you kind of need some of those guts to say like I can stay here in the front because I'll fight for you. We're going to survive together. And if I make a mistake, I know I'm making it for all of us. So that's why I'm taking the responsibility, and I'm going to shoulder this, which is really it's a beautiful. There's a beautiful strength in that for all the tribal gates.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that sort of have that tribal energy come up around this particular one. For me, the we've been going through a set of transits where I have them all prominently in my profile. Last week with the 9, that's something that I have. The 5 is there for me. The 26 is there for me. And here we're coming through this codon ring of light that we're going to complete next week. And in my experience of this channel from the 26 and this idea of manipulation with the tribe, it plays in so deeply to my experience of how that exchange from an individual to the collective, that service to the whole, is experienced. And it's, I think you really nailed it with, it really has to do with where is your heart focused, or where are you focused in relationship to the energy of your heart, which is, one of the sources of the uniqueness. So, in this particular shadow, we come into this form of manipulative energy, or is it this sort of higher frequency play of the divine energy coming through you that is a form of manipulation to benefit the whole? So, I mean, it's definitely definitely one of those energies that comes to play in our daily lives. I'm not exactly sure how, looking at the gene keys as the whole, as a whole, it's not every gene key that I think impacts our daily life based on humanity's collective expression right now. But this particular set, the 9, the 5, the 26, I'm sure we'll find next week in the 11, that every individual, regardless of their activated gates or profiles, is really deeply in this particular set. So I'm curious to know how everyone is experiencing this particular transit from the 9 to the 5 and the 26 and beyond. Has there been a deep feeling of being connected with all of these energies? So Bella, what I have this particular key coming through my planet of Neptune. I'm curious what you see in the planets on the transit. What's going on with the sun? We had the eclipse last weekend.
Yeah,
what do you see with everything right now?
Yeah, so I would say there are really two things that actually don't completely only have to do with the 26, but I think are like pulling in the chart. So we have Venus going retrograde over Pluto, and Pluto has been here. We know that like it's almost 2 years soon, and it's in Jinki 61, which has to do with inspiration or psychosis, right? And Venus doesn't really like to be together with Pluto, because Venus likes things to be loving and beautiful and harmonious, and here she is with the king of the underworld, and that's not really where she likes to be. So I think this is going to be for a little bit of time, because she goes retrograde and then she goes back over. It's going to take a while. So that feels very alive. And when we look at the body graph, the 61 is here in the head center. So that's where we have both Pluto and Venus. And then, interestingly enough, the other thing that's really powerful in the chart right now is the square that is going to be exact on Christmas, like the night before Christmas. which is the square between Uranus, the 90 degrees aspect between Saturn and Uranus, which we also had this year twice before it was exact. And now is the third time here in December, which is that the tension between the old and the new, where Uranus is the first planet that we can see with the naked eye. So we didn't even know it existed. We thought that Saturn was the limitation of the universe and what set time and structure. And suddenly then we discovered that there is something beyond, and our universe kind of expanded. But it's also something that makes when something expands, it also makes our current worldview fall apart. So it is kind of sudden and unexpected when the whole thinking of like, this is where my container, my life, my reality stops, and then there's something beyond. So we see Uranus is actually connecting between the head and the ajna with the 61. And here this is something we wouldn't be able to see in astrology, but I believe that this has to do with like new unexpected way of conceptualizing and thinking about things, and where we have the containers that fall apart. Capricorn, where we have Venus and Pluto right now, is all about containers. So there is really going beyond. The fifth line is going to see beyond. It's going to come with new solutions. It is a master, and we see that it is in the fifth line for both Venus and Pluto. They're together in the exact same gene key and line. And I think to the end of the year, I think the tension, the pulling is probably just going to be stronger when it comes to like the set rules, containers, the things we've lived on before, society as it has looked, and the new that we don't really even know what it is, but it's unexpected and it's evolving. And it's kind of, I would say it's Uranus, we also speak about as objective. So there is something here there's something that's happening that I think is going to be, the real new ideas, because Uranus always wins. It seems like the only thing we know about the universe is that it's always expanding. So I would say from where we are now in the cornering of light, bring it back to where you were, John, I would say take everything you can take in of the light code that comes from those last few transits, the 26 and the 11, because we are going to need it. I would say that in order to kind of ride Uranus and to be not just, to be able to live in a new reality, we want to activate in ourselves those codes and function at a higher frequency, function at the frequency of the future. So that feels like the fuel kind of comes from where we are with the sun right now. And we had also Mercury is there. So it's like Mercury is saying, this is the truth. This is what we need to do right now. We need to activate those codes in us, because things are going to change. And especially the last part of the year is going to be a lot of tension. We don't know what's going to happen on the other side of 2021. That's what feels like for me. And I would say too, like the last thing, maybe it's about the completely open. As we're looking at this, the G center. So I think that nothing that we have held on to as attachment in terms of identity or role is really going to work, because this is the center for identity and where we're going. And I think there is a fluidity and an objectivity and a truth seeking in the moment in our centeredness is going to be the best ally. We can't really say, oh, this is who I'm going to be, this direction I'm going to take. No, it is presence in the moment with all our light codes switched on. And then we can say yes to life from that place of being ourselves, but not being attached to a me thing. Being individuated and being here and now and taking it, I think, step by step, day by day.
Yeah, that individuation has been a strong energy. And when we look at these transits that we've been experiencing through the transit of the sun, so the 9, the 5, the 26, the 11, and even the 34 before that, all of these Sagittarius gates, what we're seeing in this movement is, how do we relate to light in general, the creative? If you look at the hexagrams, we've been moving through the fire with the creative, water with the creative, the wind, the gentle with the creative. And now we're sitting here in the mountain with the creative, the holding firm aspect of the trigrams in the I Ching. And all of these elements are acting with that powerful light. And how is it coming through us in a very human experience of of creating manipulation, or of experiencing manipulation through different forms of sales tactics, of exchanging that which we have to exchange with the world as we participate in this collective creation that's happening as a social being on the planet. You know, we move through these different elements of exchange and of individuating as we take action with the rest of society. And so much of our evolution as an individual has that singular, okay, what's my vibration? Am I high vibration? Am I low vibration? What's going on here? And who am I interacting with? Do I want to only interact with other people who are in high vibrational states? What's happening in the rest of my life or in my family where I'm interacting low vibrational states? And here, this 26 is this massive collective experience of the low vibration of this shadow that comes out in different ways, and primarily in how we exchange with business, how we exchange with government, how we exchange with truly community. And in this particular one, our individual relationship to those things gets really highlighted. Whether or not we are in a repressive or a reactive state, or we're engaging with aspects of society that are in one of or more of those states, both repressive and reactive. And when we look at how is this particular energy transforming into a higher form, we're seeing all sorts of expressions in the world of new ways that these types of energies can be experienced. You know, what is going on in our sort of spiritual learning right now is, well, how do you sell from the heart? How is the heart getting involved in all of these different forms of exchange? And you know, it's this gene key is funny because it feels in some ways, so to me anyways, it feels like this energy that is just blanketing everything that we experience. And even from the standpoint of, is pride leading me into this idea that I can actually impact my own evolutionary path? And you know, that I think that sort of makes a little more sense with the 5 that just came before us, because it's all about patience. And when you look at that gene K5 and its overall impact, you might begin to wonder, do I have any impact on my overall destiny, or is it all just happening in its own timing, you know, in its own rhythm? And here we are with this particular 26 saying, wow, once we've connected to that rhythm of evolution that is occurring through us, you know, we can do it in a number of ways. And for me, that feels like engaging in either play or in some form of control. And that challenge of being able to engage in the playfulness of our experience feels really present for this particular shadow.
I was looking at something in the meantime, or like I had still the chart up, and you were saying that you have Neptune, or you have the 26 in Neptune. And when we look here at the chart, let's see if I can take
Yeah,
it.
my design Neptune.
So let's see where I have the little pen. So here you see you have the 26. So what I realize here with those, because they are generational. So in the end of the 70s, we had, you're born in the end of the 70s and we have the 26, and I'm born in the beginning of the 80s and I have the 11. And we say sometimes with Neptune that it can veil our transformation. It can sometimes veil, and so that we don't really go to our Pluto when we do the kind of death and rebirth that we're here to do. And I'm thinking about people that are born, because we have this Sagittarius energy that's very optimistic, that's very kind of bold, and is mutable fire, is kind of impulsive in the world. And I know that many of us have parents that were that generation that started to kind of have money. Many of their parents maybe struggled, and then kind of that the baby boomers, what happened then after the war, and they could do a lot of things in their lives their parents hadn't done. They could go maybe to college, they could do things. So they kind of taught us that you can do whatever you want in the world. And I can see that with a lot of people in our kind of generation. And also a little bit of that, like you can do anything, but sometimes it's even hard to have a lot of choice. And I can see like the kind of the trickster energy maybe in the 26, like you can do anything. Yeah, it's like you're allowed to manipulate the world, just sell with any kind of methods. And how many people in our generation didn't go to London or to New York and Wall Street and work with these things, with the stock market? Like that would be absolutely the 26 for me. And then I think with the 11 too, it's that we call it the idealist in the 64 doors. And it's that idealism. Oh, I can do anything. And, sometimes maybe you take on something that is too big for you, or, you, like I say, you don't know what to do at all, because you basically, like it's sometimes hard to have too much choice and too much possibility. So that's what I feel in the Western world with those two gene keys that come after each other and are part of that codon ring of light. So that's just a little parenthesis, but it's just dawned on me. And I know that we have a lot of people in our community that is this age too. So yeah, I would love to hear if it resonates as well, because it's a different energy than when we go into the Capricorn energy and the people that are born a few years later. I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah, that I started thinking about the kind of the form of exchange that we were often used to in, from that generational perspective of that late 70s, early 80s. This is pre-internet, when all forms of exchange were centered through advertising and the visibility on the television, and sort of late night salespeople. It makes me think of that salesman selling a whammo or whatever that thing was, where he kind of like comes in and says, "This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Watch how it does all of these amazing things. Bam, 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 bam." He's like showing you how to cut food with this little tool that's like only $9.95, and if you order now, in the next 30 minutes you'll get this fantastic like it's the what is that thing called? The ShamWow. It's where he's like got this like very effective polishing element, and like, you call the 800 888, whatever it is, the 800 number, and you'll get sent to you this thing. And really, that's the key of this 26, is that sort of willingness or that sense of expression in the world, where that thing, that product, that feeling, that idea, that possibility, that you are here to stand up and kind of shout into the world. This gene key isn't about that particular activity, but it is about the energy from which that comes from. And when we begin to use our self-expression to share that uniqueness in the world, to make that contribution to the collective, to the whole, then that's when that aspect of our experience really comes alive, and manipulation itself becomes a completely different experience. It's no longer something that you use to manipulate another person for your own benefit. You are now generating a field of manipulation where other people are transformed by your expression, by your offering into the world. And, it seems like that's the direction where so much of the spiritual focus in business is going now. I know, Bella, through the programs that you offer through Unlock Your Design, is a major focus in a certain way or another. So, I would be curious to hear what your perspective of experience with this energy has been through your experience in business and with interacting in that field.
Yeah, I when I hear you speak, I think about spiral dynamics, and that everything in a way is spiral dynamics. And in our life as a human being, we kind of start on the bottom. We can say that collectively we're going through all these phases of awareness and of development. But even on a personal basis, as we grow up, as we become more empowered, it's going to be different levels. So when I think about the energy here in the 26 and the 11, in the Sagittarius case that we're speaking about, also the 9 that has that determination. In spiral dynamics, I do see a lot of the orange color. It's kind of achiever. There's so many good innovations. Like, even I remember this thing that could do like spirals with a cucumber, like we were speaking about that program. And it's like, of course I want that. And it was just this little plastic thing. So there are those like cool innovations that, if my grandmother would have tried to do that with her cucumber in the beginning of the 1900s, it wouldn't have worked. So I do see the beauty of coming up with new ideas, and to be determined, and to want to do better. Like, that's the achiever. And what I do feel as well is like, it doesn't stay there. We go beyond it. We go into the green, we go into the ecosystem and kind of giving back. But I don't think that it's wrong to kind of activate that ego. And I think for me, it's been a lot of that. Like, I could share forever with all of you and not think about anything else, because that's a lot of how I function. It's been really good to get a little bit of that achiever thing in me, to not just prove for the sake of proving, which is the not self, but actually sharing and seeing how can we expand this, how can we go to more people. And part of that is to sell, because in this world there is a currency of exchange. So I believe that activating that kind of willpower and that ego, that okay, I need to survive, I need to eat, my tribe needs to eat, the people that work with us have also needs to get paid and all that. I think that's good. It's not it's part of the process. And then I believe that the more we go forward, like the mother economy and finding ways that are innovative, so that we don't come into like a completely capitalistic system that we know is breaking apart anyway. So I appreciate the achiever kind of activation, but staying there is when we get stuck. If evolution always needs to happen wherever we are at, that's how I see it.
That's a nice thing, I think, for anyone who's got any form of Sagittarian energy kind of driving your life in a certain way, especially in the West and in the United States, where the culture is designed to really push you forward with that type of energy. And it's so easy for that type of cultural drive to just swallow you whole, to burn you up, to burn you out. And when you get that first inkling of your own higher purpose, how that connection to that higher purpose can so easily be diverted into these lower frequency channels that already exist, and the experiences that happen as a result of that. I think, that our transmission today is really about being able to hold firm to that higher purpose, it's so cool that we have the taming power of the small and the taming power of the great in such a close proximity to each other in terms of this transit from the 9 to the 26. It's really what this transmission is about developing, is that ability to focus in on that small voice that comes into us, that we get a glimmer of, or a feeling of, or a sense of, and allowing it to continue to expand without needing those lower frequency channels to develop it. And it's my hope that as the world continues to find higher vibrational expressions of these particular energies, that we will find those avenues begin to become wider and clearer and more available for each of us. So yeah,
I think I have one thing more about the ego, because I know we see that, like we said, the 80s and how we have pushed and how kind of burnout, we were in a way kind of the first generation where it like started also in the younger years. I think it's important to understand with the ego center that it has to do with worthiness. And I think that there is a shift from like doing the pushing on the outside to prove something. Where it's kind of with the elbows in a more egoistic way. I think the 26 is really about coming in and knowing who you are, and even being okay with saying, I know I have an ego, and I know that sometimes, I kind of play with manipulation. Like there is something refreshing when a person can say that. I'm so tired of all the kind of new age and like, oh no, I don't have any ego. This is my last life. I don't actually even know why I came down here. That I'm tired of that. I like people that say, yeah, of course I have an ego, and of course I'm still working on it, and of course shadow work has been a big part. Like that I feel like the 26 has that healthy way of saying, yeah, I can look at, I can even face my ego and see that I have it and I'm human. And it goes back to that inner sense of worthiness, to not collapse. That many of us with undefined egos, and you have a defined ego, Ashley has a defined ego, I have a lot of people around me with defined egos. you don't tend to collapse in the same way as I can do over worthiness, because it's almost like it's already there. It's an inner sense of worthiness. And often if you have like something that comes toward you, it kind of makes you stronger. You're like, you kind of get ready for the fight. And that's not always true with the open ego. And sometimes we don't really have a reference for worthiness. So we are in school forever to learn this inner side of worthiness, and to not, like you're saying, burn ourselves out with the determination and all these kind of fiery things that the body's not made for always be doing, or running in the hamster wheel. So to come back to an inner sense of worthiness and to see the truth of who we are, both the good parts and not the so good parts, and be okay with that. Love ourselves, because at the end of the day, if you're going to do heart marketing and selling with a heart, your heart needs to be open. And more than anything, it needs to be open to you first. You can't open it to somebody else if you haven't opened it for you. That feels important as well with this 26 and what we can learn from it.
Yeah, really, really beautiful. That idea in terms of how we can use our progress through this energetic process, whether it's human design or contemplating the gene keys or using direct quantum energy through lunar alchemy to allow our process to become in deeper alignment with everything that you're talking about. So for those of you, if you've been watching on Facebook, that is what we're doing in here today. We will be shortly having a transmission with our members and engaging in this collective frequency entrainment that focuses in moving our experience, the energy that we are transmitting through us and receiving in that way. So if that is how you can take the next step, I would urge you to join us in this space. Go ahead and click in the comments and join us in Lunar Alchemy with your membership. So if you're watching on Facebook, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a future discussion.